Hi friends, welcome to a new video. This is my kind of sort of fantasy reads for February because after Onyx Storm I am just in a fantasy mood. But before I get into what I have been currently reading, I wanted to give an honorable mention because I read Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. I am thankful that I finally read this book because it's a classic. If you don't know what it's about, then I would recommend you look it up. It's kind of a spoiler, kind of not, because I feel like so many people have read this book, and the fact that it's a classic, so many people have talked about it. I'm honestly surprised I never had to read it in school. I've actually read another book by her. I read her Fever book about the yellow fever. It's the one with like the yellow eye on the cover, and I remember picking that one up in middle school, but I never read this one, and my aunt gave me a little pile of books to borrow, and this was one of them. It's very important. I would definitely recommend that you read it if you haven't yet. After this one, like I said, was deeply in the mood to read fantasy because Onyx Storm was just so good, and I read it in 2 days. So now I'm in the mood and I needed another read. So my aunt also let me borrow 1,000 Heartbeats by Kiera Cass, which, if you don't know, she is the author of the Selection series, which had me in a chokehold when I was in middle school. I loved those books so much, or maybe early high school, I can't remember now, but they were so good and I was obsessed. I read every single one of them. So I was hopeful that this one would be a good like YA fantasy read, but the problem is that this one is way too cheesy. And honestly, like, I loved the Selection series and I was addicted to it, but I'm kind of wondering if it was more cheesy than I remember, because this is her standalone book after the Selection series. It has nothing to do with that series, and it's so cheesy. Like, I am struggling. Some of the things make me laugh out loud because they're so ridiculous. Like, at one part there's a hurricane, and then right in the midst of the hurricane there's an earthquake, or like right after the hurricane, and I was like, what is going on? And they're just on this like little island. So it was bizarre to me. The kingdoms are also like so close together but yet don't know about each other, which doesn't make sense to me because I feel like any king in their right mind would be like, scour the forest, see if there's anyone out there, like, or patrols or something for your kingdom. But somehow they're only a day away from each other through the forest. They travel so fast and they don't know that the other one exists. So basically the premise of this book, because now I'm just full on ranting, is that Annika is a princess of this kingdom, and basically there were 6 clans in the lands. They all were in war, battling all the time, and Annika's family became the chosen leaders for the entire kingdom and all the clans. So Annika comes from this family that was chosen to be the king and queen. And then you have Lennox, the male character, who is banished from the kingdom basically, and he is the lost heir of the clans, and his family is actually the family that was chosen to take over the lands. But the secret is that Annika's family actually like murdered his family, or like something way back in the family lines. So he is actually the rightful ruler. His people are the rightful people of the kingdom, and yet they've been banished and pushed aside and murdered for centuries. And Annika has no idea. So Lennox is like leading this rebellion with this really terrible, cruel leader, and then Annika is just like peaceably living in the kingdom. But this book, like I said, is so cheesy, and it feels like the author was really going for some stuff here. Like, there are some quotes that would be good, but they just feel too cheesy. Like, the whole premise of the book is that love feels like 1,000 heartbeats, and so when Annika falls in love, she's like, I hear it, the sound of 1,000 heartbeats. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. I've never heard anyone say that before, and if someone told me love is the sound of 1,000 heartbeats, I think I would throw up. Like, what? The main characters, Annika and Lennox, everybody's in love with them. As soon as they meet them, they fall in love. Annika has like 3 different suitors that are madly in love with her. Lennox has this like girl that's pining after him. I'm just so sick of it, and it's like every time Annika encounters one of the men that's in love with her, all he talks about is that he's in love with her. He has no personality, no other characteristics other than he is in love with Annika and he works in the library. So I am kind of hate reading this book at this point. I actually started this video a while ago and accidentally deleted the footage, so that was really annoying. So this is me. I gave a check-in when I was like halfway through and now I'm almost done with it. I'm hopeful that I can finish reading it tonight, but we will see. I've been trying to drink these vitamin C fizzy things this winter so as to avoid getting sick, but also drinking it while I am sick to hopefully help feel better soon. Cheers. Guys, this is such a rough read for me. It's just so cheesy. It's like so YA. I am struggling. Like every character has such a strong reaction to the things that they say, and I'm just struggling. I'm invested in the plot. I want to know what happens next. I mostly just want to read this book, but I don't know, you guys. It is so cheesy. I finally finished this book last night, and overall I think I'm gonna give it 2 stars, which is not a high rating at all. I have yet to read a 5-star read this year. I have just not found one that has been like an ultimate favorite. I've read a lot of 4 stars, but not one that is like, oh, I just want to read it again ultimately. But this one was just definitely not it. Like, I think I'm too old for this book. It was way too cheesy. The ending was not redeemable. Like, the entire time you have all this rising action and then the climax of the book happens and then it all just ends really easily, and there's not a good payoff for everything that you've been reading and hoping for. And I just didn't like it. I was hopeful for a good ending, and it all, oh, Emmy saying hi. Emmy, her face is just in the camera. Okay, watch out. She's so curious. The end was just not good, and Emmy is moving as I'm recording this, so she's very distracting. But overall, 2 stars, would not recommend. For a fantasy read, this was good as more of a fairy tale vibe, but just way too young for me. So if you're a younger demographic, then I would recommend, but if you're older, then I wouldn't bother picking this one up. I was just not a fan. My next read, which I'm actually really excited about because this book is stunning. This is another one that I'm borrowing from my aunt, and I'm really sad that I don't get to keep it in my collection because she is beautiful with the sprayed edges and then this like very cool cover design that I am just such a fan of. But this book will be interesting. It's by the same publishing house that released Fourth Wing. So it was kind of funny because when I finished Onyx Storm, they had like a page in the back of the book that recommended other books by the publishing house. And this was actually one of them. And I was like, no way, I have that book on my bookshelf right now. But this one is about a man named Leith, I think is how you pronounce his name. And he was in the gladiator tournaments in this battle arena, and he's fighting to save his sister's life. So he's trying to earn enough money to save his sister's life. Something happens, the whole kingdom is a lie, everything he knows is a lie, and so now he's on the run, I think, or he's just kind of an outcast in his society, and he meets this elven royal who is everything that he despises. But I think they're going to be enemies to lovers, which you know I absolutely love. So I'm really excited for this one. It has like a warning about how graphic this book is with like the battles and the fighting. So I'm intrigued. I think this will be a good fantasy read. I'm really excited. I've never heard of this author before, but I can't wait to read this one. I am almost halfway through this book and I am still loving it so much. The world building and the politics and the society of the old earth and their land Arrow is just so complex, and I'm like so intrigued and invested, and I want to know what happens next. And Leith keeps having to fight in these battles, and Maeve is like sponsoring him now, so she's taking care of him. and all these things, and they're like talking about getting married, and they're like spending more time together even though nothing romantic has happened yet. But I am just loving this book so much. It is everything that you would want in a fantasy read, and I am just so obsessed. I love it so much. But today is the Super Bowl, so I'm just gonna read probably until the Super Bowl is going, and then usually I read during the Super Bowl, so we'll probably like eat dinner and then maybe I'll read while we're watching, which for some reason is a tradition that I really enjoy. But I'm kind of excited. I'm really excited about continuing to read this book because it is so good, you guys.
For Washington, so that's why I really reset their team and really changed how they play. They let them give up a deep ball. He's not giving one up in the pass game.
It is quite a bit later. It's been a little bit of time because I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but your girl has COVID, and it is actually my first time with COVID. I've never had it before in 5 years, which is crazy to say because 2020 still feels like last year. Somehow went 5 years without ever getting it, and then I have COVID now. So I haven't really felt like vlogging, and I didn't put a video out last week, which I am so sorry about, but I'm hopeful to get back into the routine of posting weekly. And I need to give my full review on Bloodguard, which honestly, as you guys know, I loved this book so much. I was so surprised because I had no idea what I was getting into, and I have not heard anyone talk about this book, have not seen any hype for it, and I loved it so much. Like, this was my first 5-star read of 2025. I love it so much. I'm so sad that this actually is not my copy. This belongs to my aunt. But this book, you guys, deserves so much more hype. I mean, for a fantasy book that fully invests you. Also, there's just so many creatures. Like, there's trolls and there's fairies and there's like all these little things like estrellas, which I imagined like little, what are they called? Like little, I cannot think of the word, I'll put a picture of them, but this is what I imagined an estrella was. But basically, what is so unique about this one is that the author imagines these different creatures, and then Leith of Grey, when he's fighting in the battle arena, some of the creatures that he battles have never heard of before. They're really creepy. Like there's a wizard that controls one of them, and it's actually terrifying. But the other thing is that this author is ruthless, so you think that things are gonna end one way or something's gonna turn out good, and then it doesn't. And you guys, there is a plot twist that is like 3/4 of the way into this book. Like, you're almost done, you think everything's good, everything's working out, and then the plot twist happens and it is heartbreaking. It is so sad. It is not at all what you expect. And I have never, well, I shouldn't say never because I did read Divergent, and at the end of that series, like, that was shocking. So I can't say never, but it's very rare that an author is as brutal as CC Robson. I just loved this one. It really kept me invested. I was fully enthralled. It's so good. The way that everything works out, the plot, the characters, and like they're also just funny. Like, it brought back ACOTAR and like Throne of Glass vibes because the characters just interact really well with each other, and it's just so fun. This book also came out in 2024, so it is new. It's only like a year old, and it is labeled as Old Earth #1, so I am so hopeful that I get to meet these characters again, that I get to see them, that I get to read about them. And she does have this like side character kind of romance thing going on with Maeve, the princess's sister, and then her like bodyguard Kaylin. So Kaylin and Gazelle have like this thing going on, and I'm here for it because she has this type of magic where basically she can't touch anyone. It's like a curse within the Old Earth, and she's cursed, so anyone that she touches or kisses or anything will die. And so they literally cannot touch each other, and nothing really happens with them. It's very like side character. But if there's a book about them that comes out, I am here for it. I will absolutely love it and devour it. So anyway, 5 stars. Please read Bloodguard. It is so good. I did see the Goodreads reviews and they're honestly not that good, which was really shocking to me. Like, people were like, this book is boring. This book is like, so I expected everything that happened, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why people felt that way, because I was blown away. So maybe my take is gonna be controversial, but I don't care because I loved this book. I will defend it with my life. It was so good. If you haven't read Bloodguard, if you haven't heard of it, please add it to your TBR. Buy yourself a beautiful copy. I need to buy myself a copy and read it. Do yourself a favor. That is all that I have for you. I actually am almost done with another fantasy book, but I will review that one in my next video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!